Big brain baboon, Jack the signalman. Would you trust your life in the four opposable thumbs of a baboon? Well, if you were aboard a train bound for Cape Town in the 1880s, there's a good chance that was exactly what you were doing. Meet Jack the signalman, a baboon responsible for preventing trains from crashing into each other. But who gave him this important job in the first place? Well, it all started with a man named James Jumper Wide. He was a signalman who was famous for jumping between rail cars until he fell and lost both of his legs. Although he built himself some peg legs and a makeshift wheelchair, Jumper thought his career as a signalman was over, until he stumbled across Jack the baboon, who had been trained to push an ox cart. After much begging and pleading with the owner, he bought Jack and took him home. Jack turned out to be an alcoholic and refused to do anything unless he was given a few drops of booze, and so, with enough encouragement, Jumper was able to train him to push his wheelchair to work. Don't drink and drive, kids. Jack would watch Jumper hard at work at the levers every single day. Approaching trains would blow a certain number of whistles, which corresponded to the track they wanted to be transferred to. Jumper would hobble around with great difficulty and set the right levers for the train. Just by observing, Jack was able to learn and memorize these sequences. It didn't take long before Jumper let him try flipping the levers himself, and soon Jumper had given the monkey full control. But it also didn't take long for railway authorities to receive a complaint from a passenger. After confirming the ridiculousness for themselves, they fired the pair on the spot. Jumper pleaded with authorities to let Jack prove his abilities. After harassing them for days, they eventually agreed to give him a chance, and Jack's performance left them speechless. In fact, Jack had performed so well that they made him an official employee of the railway, with a salary of 20 cents a day and half a bottle of beer weekly. Shang. I don't know what Jack needed the money for, but he definitely made good use of that alcohol. After being employed for 9 years by the railway, Jack never made a single mistake, performing his job even better than a human could. He eventually died of tuberculosis in 1890, and his skull resides in a museum in Albany to this day. Big Brain Chimp. Ayumu. I Project. If it was 2, 3, 6, 8, and 9, then good job. I think most of you got that. Now let's ramp up the difficulty. Ready, set, go. Yeah, I'm gonna guess none of you got that one. But guess what? Ayumu the chimpanzee did. Ayumu is part of the AI research project at Kyoto University, and he's really good at this memory test. I mean, look at that speed. Look at that technique. The project was actually started to research Ayumu's mom, a chimpanzee named Ai, the first chimp in the world able to represent numbers with Arabic numerals. She even liked to paint for fun, so naturally Big Brain Mom birthed Big Brain Son. Ayumu answered the memory test correctly, with an accuracy of 79% on average, maintaining his accuracy even with shorter test times. This was compared to human subjects on the same test, and well, this is what their graph looked like. These results made it seem like young chimpanzees have a much better working memory than humans. But some scientists disagreed, saying, yeah, well, Ayumu had more practice time. So in another experiment, the humans were given more time to practice the task first, and after 2,500 trials, they were just able to match Ayumu's accuracy levels. I expected a bit more out of the humans, to be honest. Shouldn't they be way better with numbers than a chimpanzee? Big Brain Horse. Clever Hans. Well, speaking of numbers, Clever Hans was a horse from Berlin in the early 1900s who seemingly had the ability to do quick math. His owner would ask him a question, and Clever Hans would answer by tapping his hoof the correct number of times. Seems a bit sus, right? The German Board of Education thought so too. They conducted an official scientific investigation into Hans's abilities. A man named Oskar Pongs designed the experiment and hypothesized that Hans's owner was sneakily sending him signals. So he had a random stranger ask the questions instead. But Hans was still able to nail the answers. Perplexed, P. Funks then used blinders on Hans so he couldn't see the questioner, and his ability to answer the questions plummeted. In some cases, Hans would even keep tapping his hoof indefinitely. But why couldn't he answer correctly when he couldn't see the questioner? Punks had an idea. He asked Hans a question that he himself didn't know the answer to. And amazingly, Hans proceeded to do this again. The conclusion Pumps came to was that Hans was able to pick up on subtle, involuntary gestures from the questioner when his answer reached the right number. He was so good at detecting these minute postural changes that the questioners themselves were totally unaware they were making them. So Hans may not have been a big-brain math genius, but he was a genius at reading people's body language, something humans themselves are notoriously bad at. Could you imagine Hans as a detective, though? I don't know. I swear. This whole occurrence coined the term the clever Hans effect, where an animal appears to understand a task, but is actually just responding to unconscious cues. Big Brain Parrot, Alex the Parrot. For this reason, it's important to conduct animal experiments in a double-blind fashion, where nobody knows what the expected results are. Oh hey, Alex. In 1977, animal psychologist Dr. Irene Pepperberg bought an African gray parrot from a pet store. She named him Alex, short for Avian Learning Experiment. And over the next 30 years, she proceeded to make him the smartest parrot in the world. Alex had a spoken vocabulary of over 100 words, but instead of just imitating sounds, he seemed to have an understanding of what they actually meant. He could label objects correctly based on their shape, size, color, or material. Big Brain Parrot, Alex the Parrot. And he even created his own words, like when he was shown an apple for the first time and called it a binary, combining two words he had already learned, banana and cherry. Ooh, look at the smart bird brain. Alex also showed genuine anger or surprise when researchers tried to trick him during tests. If Alex asked for a banana and they gave him a nut instead, he would throw it back. Foolish. He also got frustrated with his fellow research buddies when they answered wrong. How many blocks are there? 4. Foolish. The freakiest part was when he looked in the mirror one day and asked, "What color?" This was the first instance in history of an animal subject asking a question, and an existential one, at that. Why are we still here? Just to suffer? There are plenty of past examples of animals communicating with humans using sign language and whatnot, but not a single one had ever asked a question. Give food. Give drink. Leave me, human. And give food. The cutest thing? Every night, before Dr. Pepperberg locked the lab up, Alex would say, "You be good. I love you. See you tomorrow." Those were his last words before unexpectedly passing away one night at the age of 31. Big Brain Dolphin, Pelorus Jack. So far, all of these smart animals have been in some form of captivity. But what about a big brain animal in the wild? In the late 1800s, ships had great difficulty navigating a treacherous stretch of water called Cook Strait. It was notorious for wrecking ships, and sailors were terrified of passing through. One day, as a ship named the Brindle approached, the crew saw a Risso's dolphin bobbing happily in front of them. And of course, as humans always do, they proceeded to try and kill him. Thankfully, the captain's wife managed to talk them out of it. But to their surprise, despite the threats to his life, the derpy dolphin began to guide the ship safely through the dangerous waters. And from that day onward, he did the same for every ship passing through. He was given the name Pelorus Jack. While he navigated, not a single shipwreck occurred. Sailors would even refuse to enter the strait unless Pelorus Jack had appeared to guide them. This continued until 1904, when someone aboard the SS Penguin fired their rifle at the dolphin. Pelorus Jack was injured, and he disappeared. The people were devastated, and a law was passed under the Sea Fisheries Act, protecting him from any further attacks. I wouldn't be surprised if he decided to never help out a human again. But on one fateful day, Pelorus Jack reappeared. Hey guys. He was a kind-hearted, forgiving creature, ready to help humans in need again. Except for the SS Penguin, which ended up shipwrecked in the same waters in 1905. After being a companion to sailors for over 24 years, Pelorus Jack was last seen in April of 1912. There were various speculations about his disappearance, but I like to think he found a nice place to retire in after a long, fulfilling life. He seemed like a pretty cool dude, and is fondly remembered as a hero to many New Zealanders. It's really amazing how all these animals were so smart. See you next time.